It's 5 o'clock on the dot, Central Time. We're based in Austin, Texas, and we appreciate you all joining us for a really informative, engaging, and inspiring webinar. We promise you the next hour is going to be a lot of information that you can not only learn from, but take back into your programs and hopefully help enhance the efforts that you're doing with your students. I want to first introduce our guests and thank them for being on. And Cory and Kristin, I'm going to give you guys the floor if you guys can just say a few words and introduce yourselves.
All right, my name is Cory Arensdorf. I am the PE teacher at Irving Elementary in Waterloo, Iowa.
And I'm Kristin Meany-Walen, and I'm the mental health coordinator at Irving Elementary.
Thank you, guys. And we'll, Bev and I will introduce ourselves. I'm Jen Olson. I'm the president and founder of Interactive Health Technologies, and have been working with Waterloo along with Bev for the past few years and just been really inspired with the work that they're doing.
And I'm Bev Brown. I work for IHT, and I'm Director of Customer Success.
Well, we want to just really get into kind of what the goals are for today, so we really maximize our time and less of Bev and myself on and really kind of learning about what Cory and Kristin have created. But our goals today are to really show you in your schools, your districts, how to pair physical education and social emotional learning efforts and your curriculum with our heart rate technology, the impact that that's making, obviously on this very personal level at Irving Elementary, and then how can we help you achieve your goals for improving student well-being using technology and data, especially as the world changes around us. How can we create changing programs as we recreate the future for education? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to share the first-hand experiences from Cory and Kristin at Irving and with Waterloo Community School District and their best practices and ideas for your vision. How can we really help you take these ideas and build your own framework, discuss how to successfully strategize and implement that and execute and get the buy-in from parents and your administrators, how to drive your program through data. Bev is really going to take that. And then obviously the biggest question is, this is amazing, I have no funding. So we're going to wrap up the hour with how do we go after and secure the funding. So we're going to get started with that. One of the big things that we ask you is that we want you to ask questions. We want this to be very interactive. So if there's something in the chat box, you'll see at the very left-hand corner, please put in a question and we will stop along the way as appropriate to answer those questions so that we don't wait to the very end and forget that. So please ask questions often, and we look forward to that. Well, I'm going to just start with a little bit about what IHT's vision is. Ben Benson and myself started the company back in 2011, and we really had this vision of having a heart-centered program to empower ownership of health for children and for young adults, starting from kindergarten through 12th grade. And we wanted to do that in a really personalized, individualized way. We wanted it to be based on their participation, with the teacher being the heart of the program, facilitating the process, and parents involved, and connecting all of that information through data. And what we have today is the top-selling heart rate monitor in education. We are the only risk-based heart rate monitor that's made specifically for children and for schools. And our company's really broken into a few different segments. One is wearable technology, which I'm wearing right now. And you can see I'm in the yellow zone. I'm going to get into what that means. But just standing here, doing no physical exertion, one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the monitor is not only for physical feedback and biofeedback, but for emotional. So the emotions always precede our thoughts. And we're going to talk about how we're helping kids use these monitors using curriculum to get down into a normal level. Let's see if I can get back down into blue with a deep breath. And hopefully that'll happen in just a second. But then we've got our assessment software. IHT is the official software for the Presidential Youth Fitness Program. So the fitness grant program at a national level and collecting those fitness measures with PYFP. We've got curriculum resources that are all online. And of course, the biggest thing, and what Bev's going to talk about, and Cory and Kristin will certainly attest to, is after we become partners with the school, is that professional development, helping you not only learn how to use the technology, how to consult with you to build your program, and then over time, looking at how do we make meaningful reports and data to drive your program forward based on your own individual needs. So a little bit more about how the monitors are individualized. As we saw, I was in the yellow zone. I have taken a deep breath and I've gotten back down into the blue zone. teaching me how to calm down and slow down my words as I'm talking to you. But you can kind of see here both some examples on the physical biofeedback in those colors and the emotional. So some examples: yoga, golf, archery. As we build those, our heart rate up for physical, cycling, dancing. And then that red zone is that very vigorous. So it gives kids a visual feedback and allows them, again, to go back to our mission is how do we help them self-regulate and self-manage the process with our great teachers and educators and parents guiding them along the way and sustaining that. So the system was very simple. Again, that real-time data connecting instantly to that student in the moment to give them that feedback. Then it goes to our cloud-based software. It's distributed to the administrators, teachers, parents, students. We even work with state regulatory agencies such as Massachusetts, Iowa, who collect data at multi-district levels. And what we do with that data we're going to see today is we correlate that then to academics, attendance, behavior. So we try and really build a personal wellness portfolio for every single student from literally the time they come into school until they graduate. Just a few other slides I've got is the ways that schools are using our technology. When Ben and I started the company, we were focused on physical education. We really wanted to use this monitor class after class. And so this one monitor is labeled. It's labeled 100, which we're in Austin, Texas. Our company is based. And if you're from Texas, you know our schools are sometimes 75 to 100 kids, even in Iowa. So to have a monitor to be able to individualize and personalize the program for those 100 kids when you've got 60 minutes. So this one monitor would be worn 6 times a day. For emotional self-regulation, Cory and Kristin are going to talk about their program, but having a group of students wear the monitors from the time they get off the bus to the time they go home and being able to give them that feedback on a day basis. We also, obviously, we're working very heavily with our online PE. This is an incredible solution for online physical education and helping kids be accountable, as well as our schools, holding them to the standards and the curriculum that we have in place while we're virtually learning. Special education, and we may see more blended learning come in the fall, which is a great way to have some time in the school, some time at home. We're just not sure what education is going to look like. But I think the key for all of us, whether we're a company, we're teachers, we're administrators, is we need to change with the world and have products and solutions and innovation that are changing with it. And that's what we're going to talk about today with 2 just incredible trailblazers. So I'm going to just sort of reintroduce Cory and Kristin and just kind of brag on them just a little bit. They had a vision, and they're going to talk about their vision without IHT in that big picture. But for the past 2 years, they've been named Healthiest School in Iowa in 2018 and 2019. They developed a strategy called Initiative 360, and it really incorporates the social emotional learning, physical, nutritional, sleep. They looked at how do we really help the entire child, the whole child. So without further ado, I want to pass it to Cory and Kristin, and I'm going to start with kind of asking you guys to sort of talk about the beginning, building that strong strategy and the big picture of your vision. How did you guys go about doing that? And I've got the slide up here that show a couple bullets on that to talk to.
Yeah, so Jed, you did a great job of kind of introducing what we have done at Irving Elementary. Before like the vision even kind of started, we have won those awards the last couple of years, and the first year that we applied for the award was pretty great because we did focus on kind of what Jen was just talking about. Like they started this with physical education in mind. So when we applied for the award the first time, that's what we were doing. We were really focused on the physical part, exercising, eating right. We implemented a lot of different initiatives through that vision or that lens. And then as the next year progressed, Kristin kind of got brought into the district, and it was pretty amazing that what Kristin and I did is we had met at a team leader meeting, and I had a program called the Flyers Club. And from the Flyers Club, it was basically a program that helped our top tier kids with social emotional learning. And at that time, honestly, when I developed the Flyers Club years ago, I didn't even really know what social emotional learning I was doing it, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. And when Kristin came aboard and started working with our district in Irving Elementary, I had instantly reached out to her because I found out what she had done. Once again, she's a play therapist, and I didn't even know what that was either. So I was just learning as I was going. But when they introduced to her, I just realized how much that Flyers Club program that I created for our top tier kids that had behavioral issues, like serious behavioral issues, connected with what she did. And we really just spent a couple meetings talking about the Flyers Club, and an instant connection was made. And her and I just really started bouncing ideas off each other and found a wellness program that encompassed the entire school. And so that small little program turned into something pretty phenomenal. So like the next year when we applied for the Healthiest State Initiative, we focused on exactly kind of what IHT is doing. They started out with the physical, and then they turned it into the physical and mental health. So that's kind of where our program started from.
That's amazing. Do you want to just kind of go through a couple of these bullets, just for the kind of before the, like once you sort of had that vision and the healthy snacks and kind of some of those baby steps, and I think that's kind of a key word when people are getting started. It is about small steps and building on that success.
That's a great point, Jen. It really does have to start small. You can't just jump into a program and develop what kind of Chris and I have come to develop without taking those baby steps first. So kind of some of the things that you're seeing is we created a before school exercise club, and that was like a walking running club, which starts out pretty amazing. You know, kids are coming before school even started, and they'll come to exercise and walk and run. But then as the years progressed, we wanted to change it and make it more exciting for the kids. So we got a scan program where there's like a QR scan. The kids will get an ID badge. They'll actually physically scan it from the apps that Kristin and I have, and it will keep track of their calories they burn, how many miles they've walked, how many days that they've come. So it's a really cool approach to keep growing on what you've done. Incorporated heart rate monitors and assessment software, obviously with IHT. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But we've also done some snack changes. The teachers will no longer pass out candy as a reward. So they have to pass out either healthier snacks, or they'll pass out stickers or pencils. We've changed our fundraisers to be health related. We've stopped selling candy as a fundraisers. We stopped selling food actually eventually as a fundraiser, and we started doing 5Ks, color runs. So we really try to encompass the health part. And then Kristin, do you want to talk a little bit about the run club and how we changed it from just being physical to kind of the Girls on the Run philosophy?
Yeah, so with our walk run club that we do in the morning, we also started adding some social emotional components to that. So we had Cory would write on the board different types of things that kids needed to do with one another, like they needed to walk with a new friend, or they needed to find out something new about somebody else. And then they had to report on that, and then there were opportunities for awards. So we were trying to include not only sticking with the same group that they already had, but trying to reach out, build connections, build relationships, and share some stuff about themselves.
Perfect. And you guys talk a little about the curriculum. This is a school-wide, so I think one of the things schools struggle with is just myself here in my gym, but getting that buy-in on a school-wide. Talk about the importance of that, and then some of the stuff that you guys have beautifully shown here with some of your students and the superheroes, and Cory as well.
Right. So yeah, it really, when I had started before Kristin came, it was a school project, you know, kind of like a thing. We had to look at it as something that everybody needs to believe in and want to do. So as we talked, Kristin and I did, we started developing the I360 program and Initiative 360. We did a curriculum, which is kind of the pictures you're seeing here. So the curriculum is based off of physical and socio-emotional like health. It's connection of body and mind. So we wanted to show that these aren't two separate categories. When Chris and I talked, she was kind of hired to do the social-emotional learning, and I have always done like the physical learning. And when we talked, we were like, they are so connected. We got to show them how it's connected. And this is what you're seeing and what you're looking at is one of our sleep yoga activities that Kristin and I created. And basically we talked about sleep habits and how they're really important for, you know, memory recovery, for your mental health, your physical health, and how you get those rejuvenation from sleep. And then what we did is we took yoga poses that would help you relax at nighttime to take home and kind of practice. And we took pictures of our kids. It was actually Halloween that we did these, and we brought costumes for the kids to dress up in. And then they went through like a PowerPoint presentation where the staff, every kindergarten through 5th grade teacher teaches the lessons that Kristin and I create in the morning. One of them that you're looking at, like I said, is the superhero yoga. So these kids would do the poses, and the kids in the classroom would do the exact same poses that we were doing in the classroom to get that physical movement and also learn a little bit about that mental health as well.
That's fantastic. Well, you kind of mentioned, you know, you guys have taken your own innovation. There's a lot of curriculums out there. There's a lot of resources. And it is about learning best practices, which everybody on this call in the audience is here to do, like taking little bits of, you might take one thing from tonight's webinar and integrate it into your program. But talk a little bit about, we had a webinar just a month ago with Littleton Public Schools, and you mentioned that really inspired you and how you've even put in things, you're continuing to build your program, even though you've got a great foundation.
Yeah, that's true. Kristin and I, she'll probably talk a little bit more about the self-regulation program that we came up with. We were actually doing it and inspired by what I saw from the webinar last month from Littleton, Colorado. They were doing a self-regulation program, and they had a really, really well put together presentation with Jen and IHT, and they did a really great job of kind of showing us ways we can improve our self-regulation program that we had just started this year. So we're kind of new to it, and the fact that that webinar came about last month was perfect timing because it's something Chris and I are very interested in, something we're passionate about. So when I got to watch from Littleton, Colorado, some of the things that they were doing there helped us decide which steps to move forward. So from that webinar, we're learning as well, just like we're hoping people are going to learn from this webinar about what we're doing.
Perfect, great. Well, I'm going to stop right here. We do have a question. It says, this sounds wonderful. How would a nonprofit charter school go about finding funding to buy into the IHT program? We're going to obviously get into that. We really appreciate the question. You have to stay till the end, but we will get to it. But I want to just mention Littleton, Colorado, the key to driving programs is data. Education is demanding evidence of learning and student growth. And it's not just about having data. Administrators, state regulatory agencies, they have tons and tons of data. We have so much data, we don't know what to do with it. The key is having meaningful data that is showing student growth. And so what we focus on, what we try and really help our educators is, let's see how we can best show student growth. And oh, by the way, we have all this data to prove it's working. The key to that data and the proof that it's working brings in the funding. And I'll just kind of give a quick success story on Littleton. That we started in one school with a pilot set of 20 monitors, maybe 25, and they went to their educational foundation, and they are now district-wide in every elementary. They got a $70,000 grant. So we're going to provide those resources for you at the end. We've got templates. We're going to help you have all the resources to go right into your administrator, to your decision makers, and make that ask, which, again, this is a perfect time to do so with the spring and the surplus of funding that's out there. So thanks for the question. I'll move on to the next slide and sort of set you guys up on the integration of IHT. You guys didn't see IHT at the beginning, but how did IHT fit into the vision that you created?
So what we were doing, obviously when I purchased the IHT heart rate monitors, it was purely mostly for physical education. It was for PE. And that was the initial kind of kickoff to the partnership we've had with IHT. So when I had gotten the heart rate monitors, it was specifically for 3rd through 5th grade PE classes, and it was based off of the physical results that you usually want to see from like heart rate monitors. And it's progressed because once we had that, and one thing that I love about IHT is the instant feedback that you get from the heart rate monitors, like Jen was showing earlier, the blue, the yellow, the red. So once we've done that and we had a good grasp on that, I actually in PE would talk about the connections between those colors, not just being physical and talking about here's where you're supposed to be physical during these lessons. You need to hit this easy zone or you need to hit the moderate or vigorous zone. We would talk about like your feelings and your emotions and how those actually can be color coded as well. You might not be doing any physical activity and be in the red. And then so Kristin and I worked on a self-regulation program together that she'll kind of go into a little bit more about how we changed it into a really neat program that connected IHT with us.
Perfect. And Kristin, how about you? How you kind of had that vision for your emotional wellness?
Mm-hmm. So my position was kind of unique in that, so I'm a counselor, but I'm not a school counselor. I'm a mental health counselor. And then in talking with Cory, him and I decided that we could continue to branch off the things that he was doing in PE and use the IHT technology in some of the social emotional stuff that I was doing. I also had some interns who were master's level clinical mental health interns from the university that's local here. And so we talked about how we could incorporate that some more. We did run into some problems, partly because of COVID, but partly just because of life and it being new this year. And so we do have plans to integrate it more next year. One of the things that we did do this year was the Regulators Club. So Cory and I started a morning regulation group, and it was for 5 of our kids who really struggled behaviorally. So these were kids who would end up in school suspension, or they would get referred because of their behavior, or they exited the classroom a lot. And so we needed to give them some extra support. In the morning regulation group, we would mix part of the IHT program that's provided online and do the SEL lessons like setting goals and the vision boards and some of the SEL lessons that you all have already provided. And then we also included, because I'm a mental health counselor, we included some activity therapy kinds of things. And so because we believed in the importance of movement, we wanted to have them not sit there and learn about things, but we wanted them to actually move and do things. And then we included a group counseling piece. So we would connect the students to one another, help them understand that they weren't alone, that what they were feeling was similar to other people. And so we let those 5 kids, they wore the heart rate monitors throughout the day. And we tracked their level, their blue, yellow, and red. And we did printouts, and we gave the printouts to the kids so that they could see where are typical times in the day when their heart rate spikes, and are there reasons for that? So is it because they're actually moving, or is it an emotional spike? And so we used the feedback from the heart rate monitors to help guide our program.
Perfect. And if you are just joining us, when I started, I do have a monitor on if you weren't able to see this. I'm in the blue zone right now, but when I first started just standing here, I was in the yellow zone, which is my heart rate was elevated without doing any physical activity, but doing the breathing exercises. IHT does provide a lot of very heart-centered curriculum, but again, there's other curriculum out there that you may be using, but it's helping teach kids those skills, almost like guardrails or bumpers, at a bowling alley, where they see that number, they've learned from you on how to, what to do, how to squeeze their hands or take deep belly breaths, whatever that curriculum is. And they see themselves, they watch the number on the heart rate monitor go down and get back into their normal range. And it instantly solves behavior issues, teacher instruction time. And we're going to go into that a little bit about just the small impact, as Cory and Kristin mentioned. They've just sort of started this program, but there's been some great results just in the first few months of them using it. But can you guys go in and just talk a little bit about the daily process, how often the monitors are used, how did you select the students, and how many students are participating? Obviously, physical education is one, and then the social emotional learning with Kristin, the other.
Right, so the daily process is basically, at least for PE, we're going to talk about both, but PE, it was the kids come in, first thing they do when they come to PE is they scan in their heart rate monitor, and once they scan it in, they put it on and they get ready for the lessons or the activities that day. They're used every single time they come to PE. So like it's the very first thing that they do, it's the very last thing that they do when they check out for PE, they scan their monitors out. We had probably from students for PE that use them, was around 220 kids that would wear them. And this is daily, like they would rotate through their specials, but every single day that those kids would come to PE, they'd be putting those heart rate monitors on. And then for our self-regulation group that Kristin and I are designing, or started to design and continue to, we had 5 kids that would do the same thing. They would check it out the first thing in the morning. That would be the very first thing they come into school. One of the phenomenal stories that kind of came from that was there was a kid that's in our self-regulation group that did not show up at school on time almost every single day, like rarely came to school on time. And we put him in our self-regulation program, and he still wasn't coming in on time. So he'd show up a little bit later and come in during my PE class and pick up his heart rate monitor because that's where he checked him out. But I talked to him, or Kristin and I both talked to him and said, if you're a part of our program, like the self-regulation program, you want that heart rate monitor on all day. We need it first thing in the morning, and not more than like the next day. That kid was showing up daily on time to get that heart rate monitor. He wanted the IHT heart rate monitor to start being able to, be in that program and enjoy it. So things that we weren't even expecting to happened that benefited the kids without even the lessons being started either from IHT or Kristin and myself. So yeah, we had 5 students that were in that program, and they came in, checked it out first thing in the morning, and then checked that out at the very end of the day.
We selected our 5 students based on, they were 3rd through 5th because that is the grades that Cory uses, the IHT monitors with the in the PE. So those kids were already familiar with how it worked. So they knew how to check it in, they knew how to check it out, they knew what they were looking at. So there was less of a learning curve for these kids. So we chose 5, like I talked about before, with behavior, externalizing behaviors that we wanted to help them to manage. So we selected them based on that, and then attendance, that was an important part. So one of the things that Cory's really good at is motivating people to do things, even if they don't know that they want to. And so when I noticed that the kid wasn't attending, and so he was never able to be in our group, I told Cory he needed to go talk to him, because I knew that then the kid would take it a lot better than if I told the kid that he needed to come in order to be in the program. And so so attendance was important. They had to be here so that we could measure their progress.
That's fantastic. You know, and one of the things obviously is, how do you get the buy-in? And this isn't just from the students, and maybe you guys can kind of take this of, how did you, choose the students and do it in a way that was inviting to them, where they didn't feel like they were being singled out? How did you create a culture of belonging, and certainly the buy-in from the families and your entire administration? Can you talk a little bit about the stakeholders and getting that support?
It actually started because like, that Cory is just really passionate about anything that he decides to put his energy into. And so he had a reputation to begin with. And so the administration trusted him. And I think that was an important part, that I don't think the administration would have just let me come in and do things, but because Cory already had a reputation and he had already started winning awards and getting recognition, that they trusted him to be able to do things that was meaningful and would make positive change. So that, I think, is one part of getting the administration on board. It was also helpful because I don't come in from an education background. I come in from a mental health background, and so I don't understand a teacher's perspective in the same ways that Cory does. And so we were able to get teacher buy-in because Cory's a teacher and he's been a part of that team. And so that's helped to really get that established. And our principal says that he's the fun one and I'm the smart one, because he's the one who makes people laugh and gets people excited and gets them on board, and I'm not.
She's very technical and she's very accurate, and she proves me wrong quite often. So that's a plus, trust me, in our field of work.
Well, we appreciate it. Well, I'm going to get the screen, and I'm going to kind of pass the baton to Bev to just sort of take Cory and Kristin through some of the data and what you guys can expect of what comes from the monitors and what comes from our software. And again, through that data to help drive your program forward. So Bev, I'm going to pass it to you. And if you can kind of just tee up Kristin and Cory on some of the data in the next few slides.
Sure, we're going to look at 3 different slides coming up here, and I'm going to let the 2 of them kind of talk about what they see when they're looking at the charts. Maybe talk a little bit about how they help the students. As mentioned earlier, they print off the charts at this time. Our software has the capabilities of doing a variety of things, such as emailing, but at this moment, we're not quite ready for that. So we basically have 3 slides that are going to come up that the 2 of them are going to walk through and talk about how they've used the data that they've collected so far. And I would just kind of want to let the audience know that, all of us, we all understand that the coronavirus came in and has taken away the opportunity for them. They've got a great foundation, as we can all tell, built, and they had this wonderful momentum going into school year, and then all of a sudden March comes and we're not teaching anymore. So this is what they have been able to do leading up to the time that we had to walk out of our school buildings and become sheltered at home. So the next 3 slides, guys, are your data. So go ahead and take over.
Yeah, Kristin, you want to just talk a little bit about this first one is one student that was an all-day.
Yeah, so this student, what we were doing when we, as far as an example from this, is we showed kids, we did a baseline. So for 2 weeks, we didn't do any intervention. We just had the kids wear the monitors and we tracked their data. And then we showed kids their data. So part of it, we used it as education to show them what it looks like when it prints out and what we're looking for. So we use this to talk about when the heart rate's in the blue zone, or when it's in the yellow zone, or when it's in the red zone. So we used it as a point of discussion. We also then, if we look at the next slide, we compared it over time. So we were looking at when is, like, what was going on, you know, an hour or so into the day, and then what was going on around midday, and what's going on around the end of the day. So we were looking at, is there a pattern over time? So or is there a pattern, like, are Mondays more, do they show differently than a different day of the week? And we were looking at, like, so for this one, around the middle of the day on the top one, we can see that this person's scores were a little bit elevated right in the middle of the day. And so then we could look at, was this person at recess and lunch? Was this person in PE? What was happening at that time, so that we could try to get an assessment of that and have a discussion about that. We also, part of our goal was, and we weren't able to do it because of COVID, was to look at over time, so over the weeks, was there a reduction of unexpected or unexplained, like, spikes, or was there a reduction in the length of time that the spike was there, so that the kid was able to self-regulate sooner? And so that would be a success. So all of those kinds of pieces, we were using the visual data to help us to explain it to the kids in a way that it made sense.
And it was kind of nice too, twofold. And to go along with what Kristin was already talking about, she does a phenomenal job. Like I said, she's the technically nerdy one. So she'll definitely get everything very well organized. Like she said, she printed them all out. And then if you hover over, which is great about the IHT technology, you hover over where the lines are going up and down, you know, you can actually get specific times of day of when these occurrences are happening. So for example, like when Kristin was saying, was it lunch, was it recess when they spiked up? No problem. It's, you know, that's their time to elevate their heart. But maybe on the same time of day, it was like 9:30, and that was their reading time or their writing time, and they were spiking every day. We would notice that it's writing or reading that is maybe elevating this child's behavior to escalate because he doesn't or she doesn't want to do it. So that was really helpful for us and the kids to be able to take that technology and that data to be able to pinpoint exactly what we wanted to do with our program and how we wanted to make it successful. And then another thing on top of, like, the twofold part that we were talking about is not only do we, like, we're kind of highlighting the social emotional part as in the spikes are, you know, they should always kind of be in the blue, when technically we really don't want them in the blue all the time. That's something that Kristin and I in the future want to work on, is when we develop these programs, we want to turn it into being more physically active throughout the day. So if you can see, the top graph is showing the individual was blue almost the entire day. And we don't want to see that either. We, you know, yes, are they learning? Are they supposed to be calm and relaxed during times? But also they need to be moving. We built in activity brain breaks throughout the day that the kids are supposed to be moving. And we're actually going to be turning them into brain wakes, because we don't want people to think the brain is taking a break when you're physically active. It's actually becoming smarter. It's actually becoming more active when you are moving and learning at the same time. So it was a benefit to us too, to see the blue going straight across the board. That kid's not going to get the learning that we would want him to see, or our school wants to see, if they're not getting the movement as well. So the spikes are good to pinpoint, but also knowing, you know, if they're always in the blue, how can we also modify that as well?
Great. We did get one question, or Bev, do you want to take it?
Yeah, so we do have a question probably for you, Cory. How often do your students have PE, and how long are the physical education classes?
Great question. So they have it once every 4 days, and it's a 50-minute class time frame that they have. So, and it kind of cycles through. So once every 4 days and 50-minute class times.
Perfect. Well, let's go to some of the success. I mean, you guys, do you feel like, I know we got cut short with COVID, but do you feel like you have started accomplishing the initial vision? And then what's next in regard to outcomes and using the data? The next slide does have some of your data on it, if you want me to share that as you answer.
Yeah, so we do feel like Irving, you know, has accomplished so much in our initial vision. Like, Kristin and I, we focused so much time on our curriculum that the teachers all taught. It was the first thing in the morning that they taught. You know, like I said, we had supportive admin thing, you know, that without that, it's pretty hard to kind of accomplish the goals that you want to do. So once Kristin and I realized, like, this year we focused so much on the curriculum, we didn't develop this program that that's really where our passion lies, is, you know, connecting that body and mind philosophy. That now our next year's goal will be the overall arching program that we're looking to do and create with the help of, like, IHT and their heart rate monitors. And we have visions of actually increasing our heart monitors and developing a program with that. But yeah, we really feel that we've accomplished a lot. And it's always, for me and Kristin both, it's never enough. Like, we want to always say we can grow and learn and find new ways to be innovative and creative through what we've done.
Perfect. Bev, do you want to kind of, since we're going to move into the data and the expansion of that, and this is where Bev Brown just comes in, and our customer success team is helping. What does that expansion look like, and how can we continue to optimize that? And so let me ask this, and then Bev's going to take over some of that other data. But what does expansion look like for the fall, if you know that? And how have you adopted with the school closings in some innovative ways? And that could be through curriculum. It doesn't have to be through IHT, obviously.
I'll take the first part of that. So the expansion for the fall, part of what we're going to continue to work on our curriculum, but in a different way. Like, we spent the last year really learning what didn't work for us, what didn't work for our school, getting feedback from teachers about what would work better, trying to get them really bought in and a part of the process instead of just recipients of the process. And so for the fall, we're going to work on more of, like Cory was saying, like more of the program stuff. So how do we get teachers to do things differently, to just add some like brain wakes into their day and movement into their day? And how do we get more families involved in different aspects of their kids' education and their physical movement and their physical health? So those are some of the things that we're doing for the fall semester. We're also spending a lot of time on the mental health because of COVID and just the uncertainty and the unpredictability and the emotional crisis that people are experiencing. We're going to spend a significant amount of time talking with staff first as leaders of the school of how do we maintain our own emotional composure, and how do we feel good about being in the school again and safe and all of those things, and then how do we roll that out to the kids. So we want it to be like a school-wide plan of how do we look at the mental health of the kids. There was a question earlier that I was going to respond to about how do we carry this over into middle and high school? How do we carry over our curriculum? That's another, in terms of expansion, but not necessarily for the fall semester, is Cory and I are working on how do we move this through the district. So right now, we have 11 elementary schools in our district, and we are just one of them, clearly. So we are working at our school last year, this year, maybe next year, at really figuring out how do we get this running well? How do we use the IHT data to support what we're doing? And then how do we roll that out to other schools? So then when we can get more elementary schools on board, then we'll see, it'll be like the next steps of how do we take it to middle school and continue that throughout, the K through 12.
Okay, great. Well, we got two more questions. I'm gonna throw these to Bev because these are really gonna talk about the outcomes and some outcomes to consider that IHT can collect. But Bev, did you get those two questions?
So from my understanding, there's a question about state standards, which really works nice into the next part of this presentation. IHT does a great job with the heart rate monitors. When I switched over to this company, one of the biggest reasons was because of the flexibility that they have built in of setting goals. Probably the biggest thing that caught my eye was their reports and how many different ways their reports come out. And then Ben and Jen continue to grow their company. Then they added in this piece that we're going to talk about next, and that is what we call the assessment software. So there's two phases of the assessment software. The first phase is the fitnessgram to help people gather information and collect data on fitness assessments. The second one is creating your own measures. So you could do anything. You could, like this here happens to be examples for social and emotional health. So you could set something up for the students on how well do they accept responsibility. How often do they contribute in group efforts? As a district, you can set up whatever is important to you and what you need to collect and move your kids into that next phase or elevate them into the next level. So IHT has got a ton of great resources for that. And as I had mentioned, IHT does a great job of listening to what the world's going on in the world and building. So they built the heart rate monitor as a test, then they built it as a risk model, then they built the assessments. Recently, they have built what's called the IHT App. And what's really great about the IHT App is it does give you that one-to-one Bluetooth capabilities for situations where we do have a few of our schools that do independent, online, independent contract PE, where kids take a monitor home, and within that app that you see in the middle of the screen here, they can see the outline of the lessons that the teachers are wanting them to achieve. They can see their outcomes in real time right on their iPad, their Chromebook, or their phone. And then what's really great is all this information not only is stored for the student, but it's uploaded for the teacher, so the teacher can see those outcomes. So I know tonight is a lot about SEL and all-day use, but we did, for those of you that are curious, we did want you to know that we have built beyond just the heart rate capacity, and we have built beyond just a reader in the classroom. Students do have the capabilities of turning the monitors on, shutting the monitors off with their phone or their other devices. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we have one question, Bev, on basically that was the question is, can you see the data live in the moment? And the answer is yes. Obviously, I've got my app up here. You kind of see that on the screen, but I've had it on for 45 minutes. I'm just standing here in blue, except for I had a little teeny bit of yellow when we started because I was nervous. But this gives you the goal, and it also gives you the actual. The real big feedback, though, is right on the wrist. And so to be able to have a student, they are the masters of their emotions and their physical health. A lot of times you can kind of feel like a slave to those things. And so when we put the power and we empower those children and those young adults to become the masters of those and say, you know what, I can own this and I can handle this and everything's going to be okay. So we've really built this to be a foot from their face where they are in the driver's seat and they're the ones controlling and being able to respond to that physical goal or that emotion that they're feeling. And so the question was, you know, do you see real-time feedback? It is so bright that Cory, across the room, Cory, maybe you can talk to about being able to see across the room and seeing who's in the blue, the yellow, or the red, and just kind of how visual that is in real time.
Yeah, that's one of the things I actually was just going to follow up on when you were talking about it. That's one of the benefits of IHT heart rate monitors. And I actually have some great experience because I purchased a different set of heart rate monitors before I bought IHT. So I really have kind of real world experience with different sets of heart rate monitors. And one of the things that I remember in the webinar before is that Littleton, Colorado said that they researched for quite some time to find the right set of monitors, and IHT fit their mold pretty well. And that's the same thing with us at Irving Elementary. It fit the mold very well because that color coding, that instant feedback, whether through PE or the social emotional learning PE pieces that we put together, it's so phenomenal that the kids can like instantly look at their watch and see that color coding changing for the physical activities they're doing to inspire them to be more physically active or to help regulate their emotions, to control them when they be able to look at it, see if they're in the red and they're not moving at all. Why are they in the red? Why are they spiked so much? To do those belly breathing techniques or whatever techniques that that any school created for them to calm themselves down. And it's really neat and inspiring. And they also kind of change colors in between colors. So if you're like in between blue and yellow, it'll kind of have like a greenish tint, like where it shows the colors. It's real-time feedback. The kids get emails, which I love. We spend part of our PE day going over the emails that they get because they get all that, what Jen just showed you on her phone, they get that data and all the kids at our school have an email account. So we take time out of PE class to literally go through the data that they get to physically see. Every time they come to PE, it'll instantly send them that email and saying, here's your results from that day. Were you at your goal? Did you hit your target zone? It's just great feedback. That's part of what I loved about IHT and what we loved and our school loved is that data piece and how their heart rate monitors really do connect with the kids and connect with us and give that information that we need. And the customer service, I cannot speak highly enough of Jen and Bev and how phenomenal they have been. If there's anything that I need, if I needed information on whatever it is, they will find it for me. They will contact me. They will make sure, like, it's been an amazing experience. And that's really when I look for something that I'm doing, or Kristin and I are looking for something that we want, or our school, we want, that's what I feel like we need is a customer service, is a company that truly really believes in what they do, just like we do.
Oh, thank you.
I got a little excited. I told you. I'm going to go.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, you guys are both so inspiring, and we built this company through purpose. It's very purpose driven. Bev taught secondary for over 20 years, taught at the university level, and used our product. Was, I think, one of our first customer, if not our first customer, back in 2011. And as we were developing this, we sort of listened and built and Cory and Kristin and all of our schools give us, hey, could you do this? And we're like, sure, let's try it. So, we really are trying to build this for education, but I would call Bev up and be like, okay, Bev, we've built this product. Can you tell me how it works? And so, we have an entire staff that is so knowledgeable and has such a deep understanding as educators. And that's, I think, what the difference, what Cory just mentioned is being able to walk with you in this process and being able to, this isn't a product that you get and then you've got to mold it to what you're doing. This technology molds to what you're doing. So it's that flexibility that we've tried to do. So you don't have to change what you're doing. We fit into that model and your vision. And Cory and Kristin, I'm going to kind of go, this is a kind of some online stuff, some nuggets for our audience on things that they can do right now as we are at home in the final weeks of school.
Yeah, so Jen and I actually talked on the phone a few days ago, and I was kind of explaining to her the things that we're doing at our school and through our district. And a couple of them, I just said there's two ways to look at this COVID-19. You can take it as in like us for PE, like how are you going to teach classes? You're a PE teacher. You physically got to be in there with them. Like it makes it so difficult. Like you can look at it as a hard situation and you're not going to be able to do much and just kind of maybe hopefully send them out some resources and they can be physically active at home. Or you can look at it on the flip side and say, you know what? Something that's difficult can be inspiring. And for me personally, it was inspiring to do something different that I've never done before and taught online. And it really created this amazing way of learning for me, just as much as the kids that I teach. So I came up with some fun physical activity lessons that combine PE and SEL. Thanks to Kristin that I've gotten so much knowledge from, that I was able to kind of make these videos fun and exciting for the kids that will not only take the physical part, but connect it with the emotional part, which is basically what we do all the time. So there's a couple of links here on this page. It's wacky races and it's fun. I'm doing it at home with my kids. So it's activities that anybody can do at any time at home with simple items that they have at home to allow them to find ways to get that exercise, to release those endorphins that will end up, or like a feel-good chemical coming from your brain. So it's really neat that we can create things from something that was really bad, and it can be something that's more inspiring to make us better. So like I said, Wacky Races was one that was like a physical activity where me and my kids were putting a pillow in between our bodies, and we were you could only use your arms. You had to run across the living room floor and run back without dropping it. And we're laughing and we're giggling and we're having fun, but it also taught self-regulation techniques. These activities that we're doing, like red light, green light, most everybody knows that simple game. And it's actually teaching self-regulation techniques, And then I did a video that's on there that says, get outside and feel better. It was literally just a fun trip with my family. My kids and I biked to this rock quarry. We did a picnic, and I talked about how doing these things can really help you feel better in situations that we're in, like COVID-19, that's really hard and stressful for us.
That's fantastic. And we're going to share all these resources. So at the end of this, Jay Plotkin, who's behind the scenes, is making all of this work. He's the man behind the curtain. So thank you, Jay, for helping us get this together. But he's going to send an email out with all of the resources. We've got a lot. And the most important one is okay, how do we get funding? We do have a couple of questions I just wanted to go back to just so we can make sure to answer them. On the live data, we do transmit two ways. One is through an NFC reader, and the second is through Bluetooth if you're using a mobile phone, a Chromebook, or a tablet. So a lot of our schools are one-to-one. If you're one-to-one out there with Chromebooks, iPads, or if kids have their phones, the monitor will be turned off through the app, and this should hopefully, if all goes well, should turn off. So you see the monitor go off there. And then what happens is the kids get some smiley faces, and then they get a chance to journal. So they get to pick from a sad to a happy face. They get to put a little journal entry in there. Kristin and Cory are great. And then they can use that mobile app in the same way that Cory's using it with the data reader. So it is real-time data through Bluetooth with the app, and then also with that NFC reader in the classroom where kids come in. We're going to send you a video on that of how it looks in both ways, both with the app and in the classroom. Are there any other questions that we go before we get into the finale here with the funding? Okay, I don't see any on there. So let's get into the meat of this is how do we get our, not only the buy-in, but the funding to be able to implement a program with your vision. So why don't we start with you guys, because you guys, not only have the vision, but you guys, proof is in the pudding of what you were able to accomplish. So why don't you talk a little bit about your success in connecting this and getting that funding?
So like Jen said in the very beginning of this webinar, she talked about how we were the Healthiest State winners for the last 2 years in a row. And we got those awards through the things that we were doing. At first, like I said, it was doing the healthy physical initiatives, and we won that year. But when Kristin and I were kind of doing the second time we filled out the award and tried to see if we could win it, we combined the two things. We combined the physical part with the mental. And really, that's where we got the funds. Without doing the creative programs that many of people like Littleton, Colorado, and like what we're doing, we got the funds to be able to buy the IHT heart rate monitors. Kristin and I also developed a program for 5210, which is another great program that we won a grant through, and that's allowing us to be in the works again with IHT to purchase some more heart rate monitors. But it's all about finding the programs that suit your school, starting small and building from it. I didn't have a vision in mind when I did it the first year of like, I'm gonna go out and make this program and try to get a grant from it to make it. I started little, I built up, and then Kristin came in, we started working together, we built up the program, and then once we got the program built, we told people basically kind of what we were doing, and that's how we were receiving the funds, the awards and the grant money.
And I think, Kristin, you want to mention anything on that? Or if you have anything to add?
I think part of what makes Cory and I a good team is that I'm the quiet one in front of people, and I stay back, but he's the one who can market it, and he goes and he talks about it and he gets really excited about it. And so part of it is just telling people what you're doing. And so I think a lot of the like the awards and the funding that Cory submitted and received for our school was because he talked to people and they said, hey, check into this, or he talked to people and they said, that's a great idea, have you thought about this, or I know that there's some money here or a foundation here. And so as you're starting, I would just find, either become comfortable or find somebody who is comfortable in doing the marketing piece and just talking and bragging up what you're doing.
One thing I just want to add real quick is I was never a grant writer. I didn't write grants all the time. I just literally found a passion in what I do. So those people that are watching, if you got passion in what you're doing, you can find that funding. I guarantee you. I'm not, she's got to check my grammar all the time. So we are a team. Trust me, when it comes to grant writing, we're doing it together and we're working together. But the part of your passion and what you care about and watching these webinars is better yourself, that's where you're gonna, the funding is there. And IHT will I've done other to inspire me to find more funding as well, which you'll probably hear later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is you now are being asked as an influencer to be on committees and to help distribute funding. And I think you've put yourself in a position, and for everybody who's out there that's like, nobody cares. We're not, nobody really, I'm just physical education and I'm just a teacher. But now, it takes those small steps, and what you've been able to do, Cory, is now people are looking to you to help with their blueprint, their program. And I think that just speaks a lot, because you were in the same spot. You're like, okay, how do I do this? How do I navigate? And now you're in a place where people are looking to you to help shape programs. I think that's a really good testament to just getting out there and selling that passion as well as your vision.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. That's a great way to put it. A lot of people are just like, you're just a PE teacher. I get that crap all the time. Like, you're just a PE teacher. You're just a PE teacher. And I'm like, yeah, I am a PE teacher, and I'm going to create amazing things. And with the help of amazing coworkers, it is absolutely capable of doing those things. And like Jen said, I was asked to be a part of a committee that was doing funding for the city of Waterloo, and that's part of how. And then Kristin was also invited on that same committee. That's how we got some of those fundings, is putting yourself out there, making sure you're making a face for yourself and your school and your programs.
Absolutely. Well, let's give you just a couple more resources. There's a bunch out there. It is spring. A lot of budgets have to be spent by June 30th. And so we're going to give you a few resources. Places to start immediately are within your district. There's surplus funding. This is a very interesting year because technology funds may have been shifted to, if your school's invested in Chromebooks or laptops for online learning, but there's always huge technology funds at the end of the year where they've bought all that stuff, and there's $5,000 to $10,000 just sitting there. So going to your tech department tomorrow, sending an email and saying, hey, is there any surplus funding that I could get $1,000, $2,000, $3,000? There's also great opportunities through the U.S. Department of Education, and one of the biggest wins for our profession or for education overall was the Title IV funding and funding through the title programs. We've all kind of known about Title I, but this slide basically kind of shows some of the funding. $1 billion increase for Title I grants, $1 billion for IDEA for social emotional learning, $500 million for Title II, and then there was an increase this past year for another $150 million for Title IV Part A. And let me just tell you a little bit about what this is. This is a flexible block grant, and what we're going to send you is we're going to send you kind of an ESSA, it's Every Student Succeeds Act resource guide. It's kind of a roadmap that's going to help you try and see if you can find this funding. In Texas, where we're based again in Austin, the state splits it. Every school gets an equal amount of that. It's $110 million a year. It has to be spent by June 30th, replenishes again July 1st. So the money just kind of flows in, has to be spent, and it's replenished for the new school year. And that is a total of $1.3 billion. But like I said, here in Texas, every district splits $110 million. It's about $20 per student. And here's the key. It is for well-rounded education. It has to have technology in it. It has to be a new program. It has to be whole child, and it has to be measurable. So IHT is a really good fit for that, to get that information and that data. And Bev, I don't know if you want to mention anything on that, or kind of some of the success you've had with some of your customers working across the country.
Sure. So the key is being able to measure and come up with the reports and the outcomes at the end of the grant. And with IHT, obviously, I think we've shown you tonight just different ways that we can help you. I help people all the time. In fact, this morning, 7 a.m., I was on a call with a gentleman out of Pennsylvania, and he was putting together his report for the grant that he had gotten now that he was at the end of the year. So just know that if you have our system, there's multiple ways to collect data. Heart rate, we do it really well, but we do really well with other types of data collection too. And Lois, Brandon, and I, and customer success will all help you in our regions.
And I'm just going to kind of wrap up. We've got about 3 minutes left. I don't see any more questions, but I'm going to just kind of recap some of the resources we're going to help get started. Littleton, Nate Thompson, thank you so much for the resources that he provided in our last webinar, from sample permission forms, parent surveys, implementation guides. IHT also has a strategy roadmap. We've got a 2-page funding request template. This is basically 90% ready to go. All you need to do is put your school logo on it, how much you need, and just contact us and say, hey, how much would a set of 30 monitors for my PE class be? Be happy to help consult with that. But we really feel we want to sort of end this with Cory and Kristin, our guests, and just if you guys can kind of just talk about some of the keys to leave our audience with and inspire them to go out tomorrow and change the world for the better.
Yeah, so, kind of like our main objective was for people to watch this and be inspired. Be inspired and start small and grow. So we really want, not just like Irving Elementary. We want Irving Elementary to shine, of course, but we want Waterloo schools to shine. We want this to go outside of Waterloo schools district-wide. We started getting like statewide recognition from those Healthiest State Initiative Awards. So like one of our big take-homes is start small, start with some kind of walking running club, start with a morning regulation group, create some small programs. And I constantly look for free stuff. That's kind of what I did. So Do that, build off of what you know that you like for your school. You got to find something that works for your school. Irving Elementary is a very distinct, unique of school. And so we had to find what worked with our school and how it would go, not just for the staff or not just for the students, but our staff and our families. You know, we say at Irving, we're an Irving family. We truly believe it. Our staff believes it. Our admin believes it. We talk about how we're family. So you got to believe in what you're doing, be passionate about what it is, and create things that work well for what you do.
And I would also say that you have to live it. So you can't tell people to, be responsible for their behaviors and be responsible for their emotions and then fly off the handle. And so there's really like, you have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And so yeah, we do that in different ways. We encourage teachers to do that in different ways so that they can model the expectations to the kids.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like our program, when we called it Initiative 360, we believe that for a child to learn, it has to be the whole child. You hear whole child learning, like for us, Kristin and I, 100% passionate about the kid, the child. They have to feel good about who they are before the learning really can begin. And that is what our program, the 360, is bringing education full circle. So make sure that you guys are doing that at home. Find those passions or what you need to do at your school or what you're doing in your life.
Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to reach out to Kristin and Cory, their emails are on the bottom of this. We're going to send this slide deck. For Bev and myself, it's just Jen and Bev at IHTUSA.com. And we just want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Please reach out to us with more questions and any way that we can help you. And most of all, thank you all for all you do. You make such a difference and impact in children's lives, and we are just honored to be a part of it. Thank you so much.